Hello. I feel like I've just sat in front of the camera for like 5-6 minutes just not saying anything and trying to gene myself up to talk to the camera again. I wanted to sit down and make a video that's a sort of reflection on the last 18 months of motherhood, because my daughter turned 18 months on Monday, this Monday just gone, on September the 1st. And it feels like, I know it's such a cliche, but it really does feel like I've blinked and suddenly she's walking and saying no. And whilst I'm away in Bradford and I'm, not with her, I thought it would be nice to sort of just reflect on the last 18 months as a first-time mum. And it's so difficult because there's so much to say and there are so many emotions, a lot of them conflicting, that it's hard to figure out what to put into a video that you think is interesting and potentially informative if there's any like first-time parents or first-time parents-to-be out there. So I've broken it down into categories, and those categories are surprises, things that I expected that, turned out to be true, the biggest lesson that I've learnt, the things that I need to work on, and then the things that I am best at and the things that I'm excited for to come in the future. So let's just jump right in. I'm currently between shows at Calamity Jane, but we had a 2 o'clock matinee and our shows are relatively short. Our second act is only 45 minutes, which is an absolute dream. But it means if we have a 2 o'clock matinee, our show comes down at like 4:15. But it basically means we have a really long break. So I get to actually have this moment to make this video. But that's why I'm in my dressing room. So, surprises. I've got a silly one and then a sensible one, so I will start with the silly one. I'm far more okay with poop than I thought I would be. But I guess it's also not so silly when it's something that suddenly becomes your everyday life. Thought I would be horrendous, and actually it's not that bad, and you just crack on with it because no one else is gonna do it. Obviously me and Joel, taking it in turns. You have to just deal with it when you're in that situation. And the more that you faff and go, oh my God, the longer it takes to do it. So you're better off just holding your breath and doing it, you know what I mean? But yeah, I thought I would be a real gagger when it came to poop, and I'm not, which is, handy when you have to deal with quite a lot of poop. And my serious surprise is that everyone talks about and sort of warns you about the love that you're going to feel when you hold them for the first time, and how tired you're going to be. Everyone sort of talks about those things to expect when the baby arrives. The one thing that they don't, or that I wasn't really told, is how fearful you become. All of a sudden I'm terrified of something happening to me, Joel, her, even in like years to come, in old age, when she's like in her 30s. 30 years in my brain just isn't enough time with her. And I still have both my parents, so the idea of, I'm 32, so my parents dying now is unfathomable. So, the idea that, I don't know, all of a sudden I think about all of these things that I've never contemplated before. Once upon a time I really liked the idea of skydiving and bungee jumping. If there's anything that has even like a 2% risk of death, I'm not doing it. And it's because of her. It's because, I'm not living my life for myself anymore. I'm living my life for her, and everything is centered around her. She factors into every equation. I live my life in constant fear that something's gonna happen to one of the three of us. And obviously on the day-to-day, it's a manageable fear. But there are some nights where my brain just goes into overdrive, thinking, well, what if this happens, and what if that happens, and what if someone breaks in, and what, but yeah, I've never loved this much, and I've never been this tired, but I've also never been this fearful before, and that was definitely not something that I expected. Moving on to things that I did expect, obviously tiredness is one of those, but as I said in my last video, there's a very big difference between knowing something in theory and then knowing something in practice. Obviously you can think, oh, I know I'm going to be tired, but before Mabel, my point of reference for tiredness was all self-inflicted. It was because I'd spent, all night out somewhere and then gotten home in the early hours of the morning, or I'd pulled an all-nighter, working on something because I'd gotten carried away. It was never because I was being kept up, and they are two very different things. Choosing to stay up knowing that at some point you are going to get to sleep versus being kept up, not knowing when that sleep is going to happen and how long you're going to get to sleep for. Those are two different things. And the first 72 hours of Mabel, I think we maybe slept for about 45 minutes of them, and it was tough. So I expected to be tired, but I also didn't know the difference between staying up and being kept up. The biggest lesson that we have learned, and that we are still very much learning, is how to remain a team. Everything that comes with being new parents, there are lots of obstacles. Joel and I both have very different ways of approaching things. You know, we learned that very early on. We both have strengths and weaknesses that are definitely not the same strengths and weaknesses. So when you are both faced with an obstacle, you both want to come at it in your own way, which doesn't always make for the best outcome, because you may not agree, you know, you obviously might think that you're always better, or you don't know of an alternative way, and therefore you've not really thought of it from that perspective. Keeping talking and keeping communicating through all of it, even when you think you're both on the same page, it's always just good to check that you're both on the same page, just in case one of those obstacles arrives on a day when you least expect it. And one thing I think we've been really, really good at is not fighting about who slept the least. You know, we never do a sort of, oh, well, I haven't slept all night, or I only got this many hours sleep, so you're gonna, you know, you do this or you do that, it's your turn type thing. We actually kind of do the opposite, which has been great. We're very mindful of how much sleep each other's had, and it'll be more a case of, I'll take this morning because you got up with her in the night, and well, you know, you've got 2 shows today, so I'll take this shift. That's one of our strengths as a couple, I think. And it was really hard early on because Joel only got 3 days paternity leave, so it was quite quick after, it was very quick after Mabel was born, that I suddenly found myself on my own. So I had to make a lot of decisions alone. You know, when I had Joel back and we were sort of around each other more, I then had to remind myself that, oh yeah, I'm not doing this on my own now, and this, you know, we can actually figure these things out together, and we're sort of back to being a more sort of present team. Things I need to work on personally as an individual, I'm not talking about being a team, but something that I feel like I need to work on. I've written down the juggle, but now that I think about it, it's not actually the juggle that's the issue, it's how I beat myself up about the juggle. Anytime that I'm at work, even if I'm only, you know, at work for a few hours during the day and I know I've been with her in the morning and I'm gonna come home to her in the evening, I really beat myself up about the fact that I'm not there and that I'm not the one, you know, caring for her that day and looking after her and being with her and playing with her. There are times when I'm like, I get a notification on my phone and it's the baby monitor, because I have it obviously linked up to everything, and I watch someone else put her down for a nap and I just find myself sat there crying watching my phone, you know what I mean? And like I said, every decision I make, down to which jobs I take and why I'm taking them, they all factor her at the very core of them. I know that I've thought through really specifically, and Joel and I have had hundreds of thousands of conversations over and over again, sometimes the same conversation daily. So I know that we really think through all of our decisions when it comes to career versus home, and, you know, work versus life and family. So it's not necessarily the juggle that's the issue, it's how I then beat myself up about the juggle. Yeah, I really need to work on making peace with the decisions that I've made and why I've made them. And another thing I need to work on is just being okay with change, because things change constantly. You can make all the plans that you think are solid and then all of a sudden they fall through, and just being okay with that and just going, okay, well, in that case we need to do this instead then. I'm not very good with change. I'm not very good with last minute, like, spontaneity. I never have been. Things I'm best at, I would say, are staying calm in a crisis. If I'm gonna stress out about it, I'm gonna panic about it, I will do that later. But in the moment, I think I'm really good at going, okay, that's a thing that's happened. What's the next right thing to do? What are the next few steps? 5 minutes at a time. How do I deal with the next 5 minutes? And I will, you know, deal with my own thoughts and feelings on this afterwards. Because right now, the main thing is Mabel and making sure that she's okay, and yeah. So, you know, we've had instances like in the middle of the night where she's, oh, we had this horrible weekend where we all got norovirus. So I got it on the Wednesday, Mabel got it on the Friday, and then Joel got it on the Sunday, and we were all so ill. And there was a lot of throwing up. Yeah, like she threw up in her playpen, all over her soft toys, and in that moment you're like, right, okay, what do I do? Do I get her undressed? Do I put her in the bath? Do I, you know, give her some medicine? Do I give her fluids? Do I wash everything? At what point, you know, once I've dealt with her, do I then have to wash everything? And what do I do with her whilst I'm washing everything? Because I can't put her back in the playpen because everything's covered in sick. So I'm quite good at staying calm in those situations and then having a moment about it later. And I always sort of envisioned myself as, I don't know, not the more serious parent, but the more sort of practical parent, I guess. Because I think in my household, my mum was always the one who'd sort of dealt with all of the serious stuff. Like if in a crisis, mum was the one that you rang. And dad was always like the silly parent. He was the one who was always sort of laughing and joking and singing. So I always thought, you know, I would be the person that you call in a crisis, and I would be the sort of the more sort of practical, level-headed parent. But as it turns out, I actually think that's Joel. I think Joel's the more level-headed, practical parent, organises things and figures things out. And turns out I'm more silly than I thought I would be, which is nice. And things I'm excited about. I'm excited for her to just sleep more. She's actually been really good recently. So I'm just excited for us all to get more sleep as a family. I'm excited about traditions that we're going to sort of build as a family and things that we're going to sort of do that make a lasting impact on who she becomes. Because there's certain things that I still do today because I did them as a kid. And they're things that I still get great joy out of. And, you know, I can't wait to sort of find what those things are. And I always think the best ones are the ones that you don't plan. They just sort of happen by accident because you just do them one day and then you all love it so much, or you all have such a good day that you make it a yearly thing, or you make it a monthly thing, or whatever. So I'm excited to see sort of what Montague family traditions we develop over time. And I'm also just excited to see her personality. It's a really obvious one, but to see her personality sort of develop more. Because, you know, she's 18 months now and you can already see it, and you can already sort of see what she's going to be like in her childhood. But she's also, you know, she's not having full conversations with us yet, and I cannot wait until I can get inside that little head, until she starts having conversations with me and telling me things, and, you know, telling me about her day and what she's been up to and what she's been thinking, and, you know, what she's observed from her little perspective. Like, I can't wait until we start having like those conversations at the dinner table with the three of us. There's loads to be excited about. There's so much to be excited about. We don't have any imminent plans, but we want to expand our family, and, you know, we want to give Mabel a sibling. So yeah, sort of seeing what she's going to be like as a sister, as a big sister. So I think that's everything. It's not everything. How can it be everything? How can you even scratch that surface? But it's a good little nutshell reflection, I think, on the last 18 months. Any pointers for 2-year-olds, please give me the heads up and let me know.